Hello, have you found that life, i.e. caring responsibilities, bringing up a family, a full-time job, a part-time job, other commitments are getting in the way of you fully embracing your art? Well, I've got some advice from a well-known 80-year-old, which I'm going to be using as my mantra for 2026. I was pondering this at the end of last year, and I was looking for a phrase or a word which I could use as my wayfinder, my talisman, my North Star for 2026, so that I could reach up and pull myself forward as far as my art's concerned, so that it's given more emphasis in my life. Because if you're like me, I've always been the sort of person that I will do other things, my duties first, instead of putting it the other way round. And that's what I'm going to be trying to focus on this year. And I think it's something to do with my conditioning, perhaps it's the Protestant work ethic or something like that, where, hard work, duty, responsibility is more important than art. I mean, you might already put your art first, in which case you can probably give me some advice, but it's something that I wanted to share because I know it's always been a bit of an issue for me. I've been thinking about this. I'm wondering whether it's part of my DNA, this tendency to put work, duty, obligation first. My grandmother, she was a scullery maid back in the day, and her job was to get up at 5 or 5:30 in the morning and brush all the ash out of the fires and then light new fires. And then after she'd done that, she used to have to lug buckets of hot water up the stairs so that the lady of the house could have a bath. So, there probably wasn't an awful lot of time left for play, creativity, writing a novel, painting a masterpiece. Anyway, I was listening to the radio before Christmas, and when I was searching for this word, this phrase, and I heard a profile of David Hockney, and arguably, obviously, he's really well known, really successful. And what he said, I really took in what he said, and it made an awful lot of sense to me. And I thought, I think I need to borrow a bit of his approach, So what he said was, and he said it with a slight northern accent, which made it seem even more slightly incongruous, but actually quite funny. What he said was, you've got to have joie de vivre, because joie de vivre brings joy into your life, and it's the absence of joie de vivre that will kill you. And I've thought to myself, all my life I have worked so hard, and what has it brought me? Work-related stress and anxiety, which eventually led me to art, which was hugely beneficial, and I've carried on painting. So what I want to do in 2026 is take it a bit further. And I just wanted to examine this whole thing of how important art is. Because if art becomes after everything else, then I'm putting myself last. So if I put the art first, I'm putting me first. Because, I'm pretty sure that David Hockney doesn't say to himself, I better, clean the oven before I get onto my next artwork. He doesn't think about those sort of things. He probably doesn't even enter his radar. So why am I worrying about, all of the stuff? Because all the stuff, the life's it's always going to be there, isn't it? All of those things are always going to be there. And there was research done of people who were dying of terminal illnesses, and they all said, I wish I'd done more with my life. I wish I'd experimented, explored and tried more things and lived a more fuller, richer life, which is basically what joie de vivre is all about, isn't it? It's about living a rich, joyful, happy, exciting life. Around about 15 years ago, I was a personal coach, and my clients used to leave the session with something to do, sort of homework. And nearly every case, in nearly every situation, they would literally run back through the door the following week or the following session and say, "You never guess what happened. You never guess who I bumped into." As a result of our conversation, things would just start happening to them. It was just bizarre. So I'm basically giving that to myself, so that in the next year, I want to be able to stand here in 12 months' time and say to you, "Well, you never guess what happened," because I adopted this phrase. So to be honest, this is a bit of an experiment, and I've no idea how it's going to go over the next 12 months. But what I'm hoping is that by adopting the phrase joie de vivre, this will activate the reticulating activating system in my brain. And that will signal my conscious and subconscious mind to attract gleeful experiences into my life and into my art. So, if you want to join the experiment and have a go, pick a phrase or a word. It doesn't have to be a phrase, it can be a word. Breakthrough, courage, endeavour, whatever it is, then now is your chance. If any of what I've said resonates with you, then do let me know. And thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.